The Galactic Council chamber was massive, stretching 3 kilometers across polished black floors that reflected the strange lights of 47 different alien species. Each species had their own special area with the air and temperature they needed to survive. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the center platform, his transparent wings catching the light as he moved. The Zorthian Empire will now present their latest military achievement, Vorn announced in a voice that echoed through the entire chamber. A huge hologram appeared above everyone's heads. It showed a warship so large it made the alien delegates gasp in awe. General Krex of the Zorthian military stepped forward. He had 4 arms and his insect-like face clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "This is the Unbreakable," Krex said proudly, gesturing at the hologram with all 4 hands. "It has 50 meters of crystalline composite armor. Our scientists have tested it against every weapon in the galaxy. Nothing can pierce it. Nothing can harm it. Any foolish species that attacks us will fail completely." The aliens in the chamber made sounds of approval. Some clapped, some buzzed, some made noises humans couldn't describe. For thousands of years, galactic warfare had been simple. One side fired energy weapons like plasma cannons and particle beams. The other side blocked them with energy shields and thick armor plating. Whoever had thicker armor usually won. The arms race was just about making bigger guns and thicker walls. In a small transparent cube near the back, Ambassador David Miller of Earth stood watching. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many difficult negotiations. The human area was tiny compared to the grand chambers the older alien species occupied. It made a statement about how the galaxy viewed humanity. "Chancellor Vorn," David spoke up, his voice amplified by the translation system. "Humanity formally requests consideration for Galactic Council membership." The chamber went silent. Then it erupted in what could only be called laughter, though it came in 100 different sounds from 100 different species. "The primitives want to join us?" General Krex's mandibles clicked rapidly in amusement. "We have reviewed your technology, humans. You still use kinetic projectile weapons, ballistic firearms, chemical propellants." He turned to address the entire council. "They throw rocks at each other. While we wield the power of stars, they use toys from their Stone Age. Perhaps come back in another 1,000 years when you have discovered real weapons." David's jaw clenched tight, but he kept his face calm and professional. "Our application stands on record, Chancellor. Noted and filed appropriately," Vorn said in a dismissive tone. "Now, let us move on to matters of actual importance." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. A new hologram appeared showing a star map. One section was highlighted in angry red markers. It was the New Harmony colony on the border between human space and the Krellian Dominion. Warlord Theron of the Krellian Dominion rose from his seat. He was covered in copper-colored scales that gleamed like polished metal. His eyes were cold and calculating. "The human colony called New Harmony sits on territory that belongs to the Krellian Dominion by right of expansion," Theron declared. "We have issued an ultimatum to the humans. They must surrender the system within 12 standard hours, or we will take it by force. We have already dispatched 3 of our heavy cruisers to enforce this claim." David stepped forward quickly. "That colony has 3 million civilians. Men, women, and children. We will not." "You will," Theron interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade, "or you will watch them burn. Our cruisers are equipped with the finest armor plating in the quadrant. Your primitive vessels will be destroyed in minutes. This will serve as a perfect demonstration to the Council of why humanity is not qualified for membership. You cannot even protect your own people with your pathetic technology." Chancellor Vorn raised one wing for silence. "The Galactic Council does not intervene in territorial disputes between non-member species. Ambassador Miller, you have 12 standard hours to evacuate your civilians or defend them with your ballistic weapons." The translation system added a mocking tone to his final words. David pulled out a small communication device and pressed a button. "Get me Admiral James Okonkwo immediately. Tell him the Krellians are moving on New Harmony with 3 heavy cruisers. Tell him we have less than 12 hours. He looked up at the assembled alien species. Some looked at him with pity. Most looked amused. A few seemed bored by the whole situation. "Well then," David said quietly, his voice steady and cold, "I suppose we'll just have to show all of you what rocks can do when you throw them fast enough." Across the galaxy, 3 Krellian heavy cruisers dropped out of faster-than-light travel and began their approach to New Harmony. Their commanders were confident and relaxed. They had destroyed dozens of species fleets with their superior armor and firepower. These primitive humans would be no different than all the others. They had no idea how wrong they were. They had no idea that humanity had spent centuries perfecting one simple principle. If you cannot go around something, you go straight through it. The Krellians were about to receive a very painful education in basic physics. The two human frigates hung in the black void of space above New Harmony like patient hunters waiting for their prey. The UES Defiance and the UES Resolute were small compared to most warships in the galaxy, but they were sleek and fast, built for speed and precision rather than brute strength. Captain Elizabeth Grant sat in the command chair of the Defiance, watching her tactical screens with calm focus. She was a veteran of 20 years in space combat, though she had never faced an alien enemy before. Her short brown hair was pulled back tight, and her green eyes never left the display in front of her. "Captain, sensors are picking up 3 massive energy signatures dropping out of FTL," Lieutenant Tom Harris called out from the tactical station. "Krellian heavy cruisers. Distance 2 million kilometers and closing." "Give me specifications," Elizabeth said calmly. "Each cruiser is 800 meters long. Armor thickness reads at 40 meters of composite alloy. Energy shields are at maximum power. They outmass us 6-1, ma'am." Tom's voice wavered slightly. "Captain, those things are built like flying fortresses." The 3 Krellian cruisers appeared on the main view screen, their hulls gleaming in the light of New Harmony's sun. They were massive, angular vessels covered in overlapping armor plates. They looked exactly like what they were, unstoppable war machines designed to crush any opposition. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Commander Vex of the Krellian flagship appeared on screen. He had dark scales and multiple eyes that blinked independently. His mouth was full of sharp teeth. "Primitive humans," Vex said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your 2 tiny vessels are nothing but toys. We have destroyed entire battle fleets. You have no chance of survival. Power down your weapons and surrender now. If you do, we will grant you quick deaths instead of making you suffer." Elizabeth leaned back in her chair and smiled coldly. "Weapons officer, load sabot penetrators into all railgun tubes. Charge the electromagnetic coils to maximum power." "Ma'am?" Tom looked confused. "We've never fired at full charge before." "Are you sure?" "Very sure, Lieutenant. This is what we built these weapons for. Trust the math and trust the physics." She opened a channel to the Resolute. "Captain Barnes, follow my lead. Pattern Delta on my mark." The Krellian ships moved into attack formation, spreading out to surround the human frigates. Their plasma cannons began to glow with deadly energy. "They're powering weapons," Tom shouted. "Let them," Elizabeth said calmly. "Helm, execute evasive pattern now." The Defiance's engines flared bright blue and the frigate suddenly twisted sideways with impossible agility. The Krellian plasma bolts streaked through empty space where the human ship had been just seconds before. The Resolute mirrored the maneuver, dodging a full barrage that would have vaporized it. "They're fast." Vex's surprised voice came over the open channel. "All weapons," Elizabeth said quietly, "fire." The Defiance's main railgun released a sound that was felt more than heard, a deep electromagnetic pulse that shook the entire ship. A tungsten carbide penetrator rod, 30 centimeters wide and 2 meters long, accelerated down the length of the ship's spine. In less than a second, it was traveling at 3% of the speed of light. The projectile was invisible to the naked eye. It crossed the distance to Vex's flagship in a fraction of a heartbeat. The Krellian energy shields flickered uselessly. They were designed to dissipate heat and deflect energy. A solid object traveling at relativistic speed simply ignored them. The shields might as well have been made of soap bubbles. The penetrator struck the flagship's bow dead center. 40 meters of armor plating that had withstood plasma bombardments from entire fleets offered no more resistance than wet paper. The rod punched through the forward section, cored through 3 decks like a hot knife through butter, breached the main reactor containment, and exited through the stern in a spray of molten metal. For a moment nothing happened. Then the flagship's reactor went critical. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The 800-meter cruiser simply came apart, splitting into dozens of pieces that tumbled through space trailing fire and atmosphere. Second target acquired. Tom's voice was filled with shock and awe. "Fire," Elizabeth said. The railgun spoke again. Another Krellian cruiser died, punched through from bow to stern. Third target. Fire. The last cruiser tried to turn and run, but it was too slow, too heavily armored to maneuver quickly. The penetrator caught it in the engineering section. The ship's engines exploded, and the massive vessel broke its back and went dark. Tom stared at his tactical display with his mouth hanging open. "Captain, Elapsed time from first shot to last enemy destroyed, 73 seconds. We took 0 damage. Not a single hit. Elizabeth opened a channel back to Earth's embassy at the Galactic Council. Ambassador Miller, this is Captain Grant. New Harmony is secure. All 3 Krellian cruisers have been neutralized. You can inform the Council that we're keeping our colony. She sat back in her chair and allowed herself a small smile. Lieutenant Harris, secure from battle stations. Send a message to Admiral Okonkwo. Tell him the railguns work even better than we hoped. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as they watched the battle recordings. The species that had mocked humanity just hours before now sat in stunned silence, watching the footage replay over and over. 3 heavy cruisers with impenetrable armor destroyed in 73 seconds by 2 small frigates with primitive weapons. The primitives had just rewritten every rule of galactic warfare, and they had done it with physics that was 10,000 years old. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every delegate sat frozen, watching the holographic recording play for the 5th time. 3 Krellian heavy cruisers appeared on screen, massive and powerful. Then came the flashes of light from the human frigates. Then nothing but debris and expanding clouds of gas where the cruisers had been. 73 seconds from first shot to complete victory. General Krex slammed all 4 of his arms on his console. This is impossible. Our armor plating has withstood plasma bombardments from entire fleets. How can primitive kinetic weapons do this? Ambassador David Miller walked slowly to the central platform. Beside him was Dr. Robert Hayes, a middle-aged man with messy hair and glasses who looked more like a university professor than a weapons designer. Robert carried a data pad and seemed completely unbothered by the hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Chancellor Vorn, members of the council, Robert began, activating a holographic display above the platform. If you'll permit me, I'd like to explain what you just witnessed. Please do, Vorn said, his wings trembling slightly. Because what we saw defies all understanding of modern warfare. Robert pulled up a simple equation in glowing letters. This is kinetic energy. 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. Is one of the most basic formulas in physics. Every species in this room learned this in their equivalent of elementary school. He looked around the chamber. Your species mastered energy weapons thousands of years ago. Plasma cannons, particle beams, directed radiation. They're magnificent weapons. Truly impressive. And because you focused on energy weapons, your defenses evolved to counter energy. Robert zoomed in on a molecular diagram of Zorthian armor plating. Your shields dissipate heat. They redirect energy. Your armor ablates away thermal damage layer by layer. You've built the perfect defense against energy weapons. He paused. But kinetic force? Raw momentum? Your defenses were never designed for that. A Talarian scientist raised a wing. But kinetic weapons are primitive. Inferior. They lack sophistication. Do they? David stepped forward. Let me ask you something. If I throw a rock at your shield, what happens? The shield stops it, obviously, the Talarian replied. What if I throw the rock faster? The shield still stops it. What if I throw it at 3% of light speed? David let the question hang in the air. Your shield is designed to dissipate energy. But a solid object with that much momentum doesn't care about your shield. It doesn't burn through. It doesn't melt through. It just punches through because physics says it has to go somewhere. Robert brought up a simulation. It showed a railgun penetrator hitting a Krellian cruiser in slow motion. Watch carefully. The shields activate. They try to stop the projectile. But the penetrator has so much kinetic energy that the shields might as well not exist. Then it hits the armor. The simulation zoomed in. 40 meters of composite alloy. Incredibly strong against heat and energy. But kinetic impact. The penetrator drove through the armor like it was made of cardboard. The armor can't ablate fast enough. Can't dissipate the force. The rod just keeps going, carrying all that momentum with it. Warlord Theron stood up, his copper scales darkening with rage. You speak of basic physics as if we are children. The Krellian Dominion will not accept this humiliation. 3 ships mean nothing. Then learn from those 3 ships, David said quietly. Never. Theron's voice echoed through the chamber. The Krellian Dominion hereby mobilizes our grand fleet. 200 warships. We will gather every ally who stands with us and crush the human infestation once and for all. General Krex rose beside him, mandibles clicking rapidly. The Zorthian Empire stands with our Krellian brothers. We will bring our super dreadnought, the Eternal Bulwark. 50 meters of quantum-locked armor plating. Let us see your rocks penetrate that. He turned to the council. We will prove that energy weapons and proper armor are superior. We will restore the natural order. David looked at Robert, then back at the two alien commanders. Gentlemen, I strongly advise you to reconsider this course of action. You're about to make a terrible mistake. The only mistake was allowing primitives to exist in civilized space. Theron spat. We will attack in one standard week. Gather your pathetic fleet at Arcturus Station if you dare to face us. We will show the galaxy that humanity's victory was mere luck. The transmission ended as both commanders stormed out of the chamber. Several other species delegates followed them, pledging their ships to the cause. Chancellor Vorn turned to David. Ambassador, they are bringing 200 warships. Our intelligence says humanity has only 47 vessels in that sector. The odds are not in your favor. David smiled grimly. Chancellor, they still don't understand. They think this is about numbers. They think armor thickness matters. Doesn't it? Vorn asked. Robert adjusted his glasses and pulled up the kinetic energy equation again. Chancellor, let me put this simply. It doesn't matter if their armor is 40 meters thick or 400 meters thick. A projectile with enough kinetic energy will go through it. That's not opinion. That's not theory. That's physics. And physics doesn't care about anyone's feelings or pride. David activated his communicator. Get me Admiral Okonkwo. Tell him to gather every ship we have in the sector. Tell him to load every railgun with our heaviest penetrators. He looked back at the holographic display showing the burning remains of 3 Krellian cruisers. And tell him the enemy is bringing 200 ships. They want to learn the hard way. Robert packed up his data pad. You know, back on Earth we have a saying. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. What does that mean? Vorn asked. It means, David said, walking toward the exit, that we're about to teach the same lesson twice. And the second lesson is always more expensive than the first. The council chamber remained silent as the humans left. On the displays, the battle recording played again. 73 seconds. 3 ships destroyed. 0 human casualties. And now 200 more ships were coming to learn what those 3 had learned. Some lessons, it seemed, required more than one demonstration. Admiral James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UES Hammer of Dawn, a destroyer-class vessel that served as the flagship of humanity's defense fleet. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray at his temples, a veteran of 30 years in space. His eyes were calm as he watched the tactical display light up with 200 red markers. The combined Krellian-Zorthian armada had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 200 warships formed a wall of metal and composite armor that stretched across the view screen like an advancing storm. Cruisers, battleships, carriers, and destroyers from a dozen different species, all united in their determination to crush humanity. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures, the sensor officer reported. They brought everything they have. At the center of the enemy formation sat the eternal bulwark, the Zorthian superdreadnought. It was 3 kilometers long, a monster of a ship covered in 50 meters of crystalline armor that gleamed like a jewel in the starlight. It dwarfed every other vessel on the battlefield. Captain Grant, are you reading this? James asked calmly. Elizabeth's voice came through from the Defiance. Yes, sir. They really did bring everyone. I count 47 human ships against 200 hostiles. We're outnumbered 4 to 1. Good, James replied. More targets means less chance of missing. Commander Vex's face appeared on the main screen. He looked confident, almost bored. Behind him, Warlord Theron and General Krex stood with their arms crossed. Human fleet, Vex announced, you are looking at the combined might of the greatest military powers in the galaxy. Our armor is impenetrable. Our weapons are superior. You defeated 3 ships through surprise and luck. But this time you face an organized battle fleet. Surrender now and we will allow your species to exist as servants. James leaned forward in his chair. All human vessels, this is Admiral Okonkwo. Execute pattern Delta. Wolf pack formations. Break into 7 groups and prepare to engage. The human fleet suddenly scattered. The 47 ships split into 7 groups of 6 or 7 vessels each, spreading out across the battlefield. They moved with perfect coordination, their engines flaring bright blue. What are they doing? Theron's confused voice came over the open channel. They're running. Krex laughed. Fire all weapons. Cut them down. The Krellian-Zorthian fleet opened fire. The space between the 2 forces filled with plasma bolts, particle beams, and missile trails. It looked like a wall of death advancing toward the human ships. But the human vessels twisted and turned with impossible grace. Their smaller size and advanced engines made them dance between the incoming fire like leaves in a storm. Some shots came close but none found their targets. "They can't hit us," Elizabeth reported from the Defiance. "Their ships are too slow, too heavy. All that armor makes them clumsy." James watched the enemy fleet lumber forward, their massive vessels struggling to track the fast-moving human ships. "All vessels weapons-free. Fire at will." 47 railguns spoke as one voice. The sound was more felt than heard, a deep electromagnetic pulse that rippled through space. Tungsten carbide penetrators accelerated to 3% of light speed, invisible streaks of death that crossed the battlefield in fractions of a second. The Eternal Bulwark took 12 direct hits within 3 seconds. The mighty superdreadnought's shields flickered and died, completely useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The penetrators struck the bow armor and simply kept going. 50 meters of quantum-locked crystalline plating, the pride of the Zorthian Empire, offered no more resistance than tissue paper. The rods punched through the entire length of the ship. They pierced reactor chambers, weapon magazines, and fuel tanks. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes. Internal explosions rippled along the dreadnought's hull. The Eternal Bulwark broke in half. The two pieces tumbled through space, trailing fire and debris. The ship that was supposed to be indestructible had lasted less than 5 seconds. "Impossible." Krex's scream came over the open channel. James remained calm. "Target the cruiser formations. Keep firing." The human wolf packs swept through the enemy fleet like sharks through a school of fish. The Krellian ships tried to scatter, but their heavy armor made them slow and predictable. Every time a human frigate fired, another enemy cruiser exploded or went dark. A Krellian battleship attempted to ram the Defiance. Elizabeth's ship simply accelerated away, then came around behind it and fired a single shot. The penetrator entered the battleship's engines and the massive vessel tore itself apart. "Their shields aren't stopping anything," a panicked transmission screamed across all channels. "The armor does nothing. We can't fight this." Theron's command ship turned to flee, its engines burning at maximum power. "All ships retreat. Fall back to friendly space." The order came too late for most. The human ships continued their deadly work, each railgun shot claiming another victim. Enemy vessels collided with each other in their panic to escape. Some captains simply abandoned their ships in escape pods. James watched the rout on his tactical display. Red markers winked out one by one as enemy ships were destroyed or surrendered. The organized battle fleet had become a chaotic mess of fleeing vessels. "Admiral, should we pursue?" his weapons officer asked. James shook his head slowly. "Negative. Let them run. Let them go home and tell everyone what happened here. Let them explain how 200 ships lost to 47. He opened a channel to the Galactic Council. "Ambassador Miller, this is Admiral Okonkwo. The Arcturus sector is secure. Enemy forces are in full retreat. Human casualties, 3 frigates with minor damage. 0 ships destroyed." He paused. "Enemy casualties, 187 ships destroyed or disabled. 13 vessels escaped." The battle had lasted 11 minutes. On the view screen, debris from 200 warships tumbled slowly through space. Pieces of crystalline armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. Fragments of ships that were supposed to be unstoppable. The shattered pride of empires that thought they knew everything about warfare. Elizabeth's voice came through, quiet and respectful. "Sir, the enemy has stopped transmitting. I think they've learned their lesson." James looked at the debris field, at the burning wrecks and drifting life pods. "I hope so, Captain. I truly hope so. Because if they haven't, we'll have to teach them again." 6 months had passed since the Battle of Arcturus, and the Galactic Council chamber looked very different now. The small transparent cube that had housed the human delegation was gone. In its place stood a proper chamber equal in size to those of the elder species, with the blue and green colors of Earth displayed proudly on its walls. Ambassador David Miller stood among the other delegates, no longer in the back but in the circle of equals. Chancellor Vorn called the session to order, his transparent wings spread wide in a formal gesture. "The Galactic Council recognizes Earth as a full member species with all rights and privileges," Vorn announced. "This includes military cooperation rights, technology exchange programs, and voting privileges on all council matters." The chamber filled with sounds of approval. No laughter this time. No mockery. Just respect. General Krex approached the human chamber slowly. His 4 arms were held in a gesture that David had learned meant humility and respect among the Zorthian people. "Ambassador Miller," Krex said quietly, The Zorthian Empire formally requests human military advisors. Our fleet commanders wish to learn from human tactics and weapons design. We have much to learn. We were arrogant and foolish. Before David could respond, Warlord Theron stepped forward. His copper scales had faded to a pale color, which David now knew indicated shame among the Krellian species. The Krellian Dominion offers formal apology for our actions, Theron said, his voice lacking its former pride. We cede 3 border systems to humanity as reparations for our unprovoked attack. We also wish to request. He paused, seeming to struggle with the words, to purchase railgun technology and training. David smiled warmly. Not purchase, Warlord Theron. We're allies now. Allies share technology. We'll help you retrofit your ships and train your crews. No payment necessary beyond friendship and cooperation. Theron's scales brightened slightly. You are more generous than we deserve, Ambassador. The central platform activated, and Lieutenant Emily Parker appeared there. She was young, barely 30, with blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She had been the chief engineer on the Defiance during the Battle of New Harmony, and now she stood before hundreds of the galaxy's greatest scientists and military commanders. Thank you for inviting me to speak, Emily began nervously, then found her confidence. She activated a holographic display showing human railgun designs. For 10,000 years, you perfected energy weapons and energy defenses. You built an entire military doctrine around plasma, particles, and shields. She brought up the simple kinetic energy equation. We spent 500 years perfecting this. Just this. One simple formula. We asked ourselves, how do we make something hit as hard as possible? The answer wasn't complicated technology or exotic particles. It was just speed and mass. A Talarian scientist raised a wing. But energy weapons are more advanced, more evolved, more sophisticated than simple kinetics. More complicated, Emily interrupted gently. Not better. Just more complicated. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. She smiled. My grandfather used to say, if you can't open a door, you can either build a fancy machine to pick the lock or you can just kick it down. Both work, but one is a lot simpler. Dr. Robert Hayes joined her on the platform. We're now working on hybrid systems, he explained, pulling up new ship designs. Human kinetic weapons combined with alien energy weapons. Zorthian armor plating reinforcing human hulls. Krellian shield generators protecting human railgun batteries. Talarian navigation systems improving our targeting computers. The display showed sleek new warships that combined the best of all species technologies. They were beautiful and deadly, mixing curves and angles, old and new. The galaxy has never seen combined arms doctrine like this, Robert continued. We're not replacing your technology. We're adding to it, making it better. The months that followed brought unprecedented cooperation. Zorthian engineers worked alongside human technicians. Krellian pilots trained with human captains. Species that had been enemies for generations now worked side by side, united by the shared knowledge that the old ways of thinking had been wrong. Then the alarms sounded. Admiral James Okonkwo stood in the Council's military command center, watching sensor data flood in from the galactic rim. Unknown vessels. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Their technology signatures were beyond anything the Council had ever encountered. More advanced than even the eldest species. A new threat, Chancellor Vorn said quietly, his wings trembling. Something we've never seen before. More advanced than any of us. David studied the tactical projections showing the approaching fleet. How long until they reach Council space? 3 months at their current speed. Perhaps less if they accelerate. James pulled up the combined fleet rosters on his display. Human destroyers integrated with Zorthian cruisers. Krellian carriers equipped with hybrid railgun plasma weapon systems. Talarian scout ships with human armor plating. A truly united galactic fleet. Then we have 3 months to be ready, James said firmly. 3 months to show these newcomers what happens when the galaxy works together. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, all species begin combat integration drills immediately. Human vessels, share your tactical databases with your allied counterparts. Zorthian commanders, coordinate with human captains on wolfpack formations. Krellian carriers, practice rapid deployment with mixed-species fighter wings. Elizabeth Grant's voice came through from the Defiance. Admiral, the crews are ready. We've been training together for months. What are your orders? James looked at the star map showing the approaching threat. Dozens of ships from dozens of species, all armed with weapons that combine the best ideas from across the galaxy. Human railguns, Zorthian armor, Krellian shields, Talarian sensors. We defend our galaxy, James said simply. All of it. Every species. Every world. Together. David placed a hand on the Admiral's shoulder. 6 months ago they laughed at us. Called us primitive. Said we threw rocks. And now? Bourne asked. Now we've taught them that innovation isn't just about inventing new things, David said. It's about perfecting what already works. It's about not being afraid to use simple solutions to complex problems. The United Fleet began moving toward the galactic rim, engines burning bright across 100 different designs. Railguns charged and ready. Plasma cannons powered up. Shields at maximum. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate the simple solution. Never mock what you don't understand. And never, ever think that old technology can't still change everything. Humanity had come to the stars not as conquerors but as teachers. And the galaxy was better for it. As the combined fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, James allowed himself a small smile. Whatever was coming, whatever new threat approached, it would face not just humanity's weapons but humanity's philosophy. Sometimes the old ways really are the best ways. And sometimes a rock thrown fast enough can move the entire universe.